Welcome to Prepper Talk Radio, ready for the ready-minded. We're excited to be here on our live. We're live at YouTube. We're live on Facebook and in our page and our Facebook group, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. And we want to just remind everybody about our website, preppertalkradio.com. Go there, download any free resources that we have. You'll see that we have a lot of them. And that'll give you an opportunity to join our email list. We're going to start utilizing that more regularly, communicating with everybody about different things that are happening, different partnerships we're making, affiliates that we're contacting, and things that we're going to be able to do to provide a greater value to our audience and to our listeners. Wanted to also just remind everybody that there's still a ton of woke agenda out there. There's a ton of woke things happening. If you want to fight against the woke agenda, one of the best ways to do that is to vote with your dollars. We definitely are in an election year, so we need to vote politically as well. But you can also vote with your dollars. And if you want to support good American-made, American products, I think that you should do that. And I feel like we have an opportunity to share with you one of the places we're spending our dollars, and that's at mylibertybox.com/Prepper Talk. And we'd love for you to go there, fill out some information, and we'll be contacting you to let you know what we're doing to switch some of our dollars over to American-made, American-manufactured, and American products. So without further ado, though, let's jump into the show. Today, we're going to talk about some things. In our show, we talk a lot about building community. We talk a lot about, getting together with your neighbors, making sure that you're finding who's got what skills, and maybe fill in the gaps where maybe you have a gap, but your neighbor has that strength, and you can kind of work together and collaborate. In this episode, we still believe that, by the way, but in this episode, we're going to do a little bit of a devil's advocate on that. And we're going to talk about some of the dangers potentially in working with neighbors, and what some of our neighbors might end up being more dangerous than we thought. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, not to mention the reality of not just our neighbors like in our neighborhoods, but our neighbors like the countries to the south, country to the north, some of the border issues we're seeing, and some of the neighbors we might be getting here in the next few months as people are shipped in and bussed in and plane flighted in and whatever else there is happening to get them into our neighborhood. So we're going to talk a little bit about how our neighbors could be a threat to us in SHTF or in survival scenarios. So let's jump right in.
I think for me, and I'm going to get maybe a little controversial right off the bat here. I've been in my neighborhood for probably 15 years. I know most of my neighbors really well, or fairly well. And man, they're good people. They're great people. There's almost nothing I wouldn't do for them. But I've never been in an SHTF situation with them or by myself, right? So okay. What would I really do, right? Anything I do is going to reduce my ability to take care of my own family, right? If I have to provide meals or any kind of resources, it's just going to take away from my family, right? So with these people that I truly love and would do almost anything for, I have a lot of hard decisions to go over, maybe write down, think out in my head, and I'm still thinking about these topics because honestly, I don't know in a lot of cases what I would do. But I think most preppers already have and I'm probably overgeneralizing there a little bit, already kind of know that my family is first. My first priority is to myself and my family. So where do we go from there?
Well, it's interesting because it's like, you think about your whole life growing up, you rely on your parents as a kid, then you move out or they kick you out or whatever out, right? You're out. And then you're on your own, fend for yourself. And then you become a husband or wife, right? And then you become a parent, a mother and a father. And you grow from there, and then you become a grandparent. But the reality is your responsibility is for your household, right? And that's something we've been taught most of our lives. Even from a religious standpoint, like we have a stewardship for our household, our family.
And it's absolutely true.
And what's interesting is there is a huge woke section of the population that thinks su casa es mi casa, but mi casa is no you casa, right? They're like, well, what's yours is mine because you make more money, but I don't have to share because I'm poor, right? Or I'm on the left, and so that's how it is.
Entitlement.
It's it's weird. It's psycho. But interesting is like absolutely your responsibilities to your family. If my neighbors come over and they're like, hey, we need help. Well, what does that entail?
Yeah.
Like this is where you have to filter out what is safe to do and what is not safe to do.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, you've got to go by what your gut's telling you or what you're feeling from God, what his direction is. But that's where it's going to be extremely difficult because every meal you hand out, every surplus item you hand out is less to sustain your urgent primary need, which is your family.
Well, that word surplus or extra, right? Do any of us really have anything extra, right? Use air quotation marks.
Absolutely.
It is. I think some of us and some people, I do know, I've heard stories that there are some people that have had enough wealth to where they've prepared for a couple of years for their own family, and they're purposefully stocking up to help others. That's fantastic. I mean, I would love to be to that point, and maybe someday I'll get there. Hopefully we'll have enough time to where I can purposefully do that. But is anything really going to be extra?
So 100% agree with you on that. Like, I don't know that there may not be anything extra, but there is extra now, right?
Yeah.
What's interesting is if SHTFs, we have extra first aid, we have extra clothing, we have I have things that I won't use
on the short
post
term.
SHTF that we bought, right? Specifically for other people in case they need it. However, food's not on that list. Water's on that list. Hygiene stuff's on that list. We have so much stuff that we've bought for other people and then had them store it so that they're less of a risk to us anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's something, I mean, that's back like when I was running PrepperCon and I got crazy deals on everything. Like I was like, sweet, I got a sweet deal on this. Okay. How much can I buy? How much can I get for that amazing deal? Okay. Bought enough for everybody and passed it out. And it's like, I did that for the very purpose of long-term preservation of self, of my family, my immediate family. And it's gone to extended family so that now they can be helpful to us and we can be helpful to them post SHTF and not another drain on resources.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the reality is that, you might be in a Christian society or a community right now, and that's because everything's great. But when you squeeze and you get to the point where you're like, it's you or me, or it's my kids, or I got to eat and I can't figure out what to do other than feed my kids. You see a lot of things. A lot of people will get, they start to blur those lines of what they think would be morally correct and so it's just important to remember that when you have a starving mother or starving father and their kid is starving and you have some food, obviously you're going to want to have compassion. Obviously you're going to want to be doing that, living yourself in a Christian. If you were a Christian, you're going to want to live that way. But you got to remember, you can't, if you don't have enough for your family, you're eventually going to be that person begging for food too. Mm-hmm. So that's something that you got to remember, and it's tough. It's a definite gut check. But every natural disaster like Hurricane Katrina or any of these major earthquakes that happened in like Haiti or anywhere the third world earthquakes, the society collapses quite quickly into anarchy, and people have to be really safe. In fact, my buddy, and most of you guys know him, Todd, we've had him on the show several times. He's Todd, the guy I practiced my gun, my Second Amendment practicing with. He just went to Portland just for a visit to his family and like a family reunion in Portland, like in United States, like Oregon, and he's like, bro, they took a wrong turn because they were going somewhere and they took a wrong turn. And he's like, we get us out of here right now. There were zombies, like fentanyl zombies, like all up and down the road, up and down the street. And those people don't care. Those people won't care. And it's like, so when SHTF and it's long term, people are a couple of weeks max away from turning into, renegades or marauders.
So I did a research years ago and found that most families in the United States have less than 3 days of food in their home. That was that study that I found that talked about that was from 2007. Now with the on-demand lifestyle, I'm hearing people saying they have less than 3 meals. And you shared a article with us from, I think it was My Patriot Supply, but they referenced MI5 from the UK talking about we're 4 meals away from anarchy. That's how like unprepared most people are. And when they see you living fat, they're going to want to come after you. And so there's that really hard challenge, because it's like, love thy neighbor as thyself. That's what Jesus taught.
Do unto others.
And then you've got, holy crap, I've got to keep my family safe. And if your neighbor becomes your enemy, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, Eric has, Eric's comment. I just wanted to address this real quick here. Obviously, he and his friends have disconnected, or neighbors in particular have disconnected. And I think really that's kind of the ideal situation, is allow them to disconnect, right? And not make the choice yourself. And I think that's really kind of the ideal situation in my mind is, and we hear a lot of motivational speakers, get those people out of your life who are not positive influences on your life, right? And so that is kind of, I'll say it again, ideal in that, okay, they are off the list, right? They're not, I'm not even considering them anymore. And so they've weeded themselves out.
Yeah. But then they're still nearby and they can still come attack. So you got to be careful. And to address the second part of his question is that I would move from I think the full question was, would you move from a blue state to a red state? Even if it was for less pay. And of course you got to balance the future. I mean, if you're a temporary less pay, then I would definitely, get out of some of these places, especially certain states. There's some states right now that are doing things with their politics and their legal, the senates and what they're doing, and all these not terrorists. Well, no, they are terrorists. All these people coming in across the border that are being funneled through to certain particular states. Those are higher likelihood that you're going to have a situation where you're going to be have to defend yourself. So if you can get out now and you can temporarily take a hit and then rebuild it, I would say get out while you can, and then hopefully that will give you a chance to get to a new location, get established, and then start building your income back up. But again, you got to weigh. There's a lot more factors than just some knucklehead on Prepper Talk Radio Live telling you what to do. Hopefully you don't be, well, Paris said to move, honey, let's go. No.
Be prayerful, be thoughtful, consider all your options. But if you feel drawn somewhere for long-term safety, better life, 100% go. Like that's exactly the situation I'm in right now. And what's funny is my neighbors, my immediate neighbors, ones across the street aren't preppers. The ones next to me are preppers. The ones next to me on the other side, not preppers, but the ones next to them are preppers. The ones across the street from them are preppers. I have police officers. I have emergency services. I have so many resources right here in my neighborhood. It's kind of like the ideal. If you're going to prep, these are some of the best people to be around. I have the inventor of the Harvest Right food freeze dryer 7 houses away from me. Now you guys can Google him and find out where he lives and find out where I live, but I'm moving. So good luck. Tough, right? But it's like, I have a fantastic network here and we're moving. Not necessarily like, we want to, but not where we were planning, not where we were looking. We've been drawn to a specific place, and it's going to be no neighbors. And we'll build a little compound where people can come and stay.
And you say no immediate neighbors, though, right?
No immediate neighbors. Like we're going to be about, I think the places that I'm looking at, one of them is 7 miles from the next neighbor.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's my favorite one so far. The next ones are about half a mile away from each other. But one of them is 20 miles to the next city. And so I'm like, sweet. And those cities are rural, 2,000 people. So I'm like all right. But here, what's funny is like, there's this huge movement of people moving off grid right now. Huge. And moving to partially off grid, hybrid, homesteading or mini farm, hobby farming is one of the terms. But there's this huge movement, and it's funny because who's doing it? It's mostly millennials.
Yeah.
Right. The Gen Zers, who knows what they're going to end up doing? But Gen Xers, I think most Gen Xers are going to be barricaded into wherever they are, and they're going to be like, come and take it. The millennials are like, we're moving to the farm. The ones that are getting it, they're like, we're moving to a rural area. We're going to have a farm. We're going to do something chill, and we're going to be fully self-sustained where we live. And the Gen Zers are probably going to be going crazy because they didn't prepare. And that's the group I worry about the most. What's funny is if you go back further, like the opposite direction, the baby boomers, they're probably the best prepared people. Everyone I've talked to that's a baby boomer that's been in self-reliance for a little time, they have way better resources and networks and systems in place than most of us. And the ones that don't know how to do the things that need to be done to be able to become resilient, right? They've lived through tougher times. Like I say this all the time. It's a phrase from the Depression era, but it's use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. And it's like, that is going to be my moniker for the rest of my life. When it comes to SHTF, it's like, dude, use what you have, use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. And if my neighbors don't have stuff to use up, that's on them. I'm sorry. I cannot give up what I need for my kids. For everyone else.
So I'm thinking my moniker for regards to my neighbors is, you made your bed, now lie in it, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty I don't know if that's selfish or if that's just, being responsible. I don't know what that fine line is, but we do know we are meant to live in a community with other people, not just by ourselves alone. That's no way to live, right? That's why we tend to gather together in cities. I mean, there's other reasons, but I also know that when we can help bless other people's lives, we will be blessed as well.
Yeah.
So where is that? And I don't know if there is a line. Where is that line to where we can help our neighbors and it not be damaging to ourselves? And of course, I think of Old Testament widow of Zarephath, to where she made, and I've referenced this before, I'll say it again, she was asked to make a meal for Elijah first, and their barrel meal didn't waste, and their cruise of oil failed. So I believe in that is a possibility. If we give with that state of mind, with that blessing in mind, that maybe our supplies will last. They will be blessed accordingly.
I think part of being a prepper is to prepare ahead of time with neighbors, as many as you can, getting them all on the same page, at least letting them know ahead of time. Say, hey, look, you know what? Let's come over and have a little bit of a conversation about being prepared, having some food storage, some water storage. If anything happens, natural disasters, keep it light. Maybe you'll get an idea of who's who and what's what. And if you kind of set the tone ahead of time, that you'll be there's some people you'll get to know and love, and you'll be like, you know what, this family I'm definitely helping. And then you get your community, and then crap hits the fan. You set up your kind of network, crap hits the fan, and some new group comes in, some new family, some new person comes in. Now it's time to really do. I think what Practical just put in the chat here he talks about survey, evaluate, respond, and evacuate if necessary, situational and environmental awareness, which actually on a spiritual plane is just discernment. understanding that you can use these skills that you can learn on, physically, and then spiritually add to that. You can survey, evaluate, you can respond, you can ask God to help guide and direct you. And with the two of those things, with your skills that you build, plus your willingness to follow through on that, you'll know who the new people, if this new guy coming in, or this new family, or this new neighbor, you'll know if they're a threat or if there's somebody that you can trust and bring into the fold. And maybe another thing too is, like, if somebody comes in and they say, hey, we don't have anything but work, and you need to help, build something, like, hey, for your labor, we won't give you food, but if you work, we can pay you maybe in food. And so those are some things to think about. I would say, as I'm just kind of thinking this through, like, if I had to really sit down and think about what would I do if my neighbors came up to me, first, I'd want to have a good network already. But if somebody new came in, I'd really want to be careful.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is like, I look at that, that's the big gray area that everyone talks about. Like, whoa, what will I really do? And to me, I don't look at it as the gray area as much as that's the big in tune area, because I need to be in tune enough with God to know, and using my situational awareness to know what's a threat and what's not a threat, and who he's sending to me for help.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I've had experiences where people have shown up and provided stuff to help others and said, I don't know why I'm here, except I felt prompted and I felt like I needed to be here to help. So what do you need? And they'd help, and I've been the guy that's felt prompted to go and help, and been there and helped. And sometimes it's meals, and sometimes it's different things. Like when I was in Florida, we had the deadliest tornado in the history of the state happened while I was there, where I was living. And we spent the next 2 to 3 weeks cleaning up, getting power restored to the areas that didn't have power, working with the local, municipalities. 9 times out of 10, that's the disaster you're going to be facing. Right. Those are the things. But in a full SHTF scenario, which is guaranteed in our lifetime. At some point, yeah. It's not if, it's when. When that happens, the situation completely changes, because from a biblical standpoint, that is what we've been taught is the great and terrible day of the Lord is coming, is nigh at hand. The things that have to happen before that, we'll see civil wars, we'll see world war, and the whole world will be in turmoil, right? And we'll see earthquakes and famines and pestilence, like all these things. And it's as imperative today to prepare as it was for people to get on Noah's Ark in his day. So if you're not preparing and you're a religious person, you need to hear that again. It is imperative to be preparing today as it was to board the Ark in Noah's time. And most of my neighbors are supposedly religious, and if they're not doing that, I can't. To me, it goes to the parable of the 10 virgins. The 5 who were prepared and had extra oil, and the 5 who didn't. And anyone who tries to tell you that, well, that's spiritual gifts and that's spirit, having the Spirit with you, you need to go reread it, because it says, go to the markets and buy more oil. They tell the 5 foolish ones to go do that. So what do? They go to the markets. Markets are closed, so they're running around trying to find oil. They come back too late, and they can't get into the wedding feast.
They didn't prepare.
It's like, now we have the time and opportunity to go get the oil, go get the food, go get the stuff. And it's like, we have to have the oil for ourselves for that great day.
So maybe there's your key right there. 5 did not share. So 50% of your neighborhood, maybe they're prepared. Are we going to share? Maybe there's your answer. I don't know. But, I keep thinking about, okay, if we're prepared and we have seeds and gardening tools, that could be a great opportunity to get with the community, say, hey, there's some vacant land over here. Let's all get together and let's start planting crops. Let's all work together. And it could be a really great time to come together, when previously people don't listen. They don't. I mean, I talk to people all the time. They have no clue. I have family and close neighbor friends who I try to drop hints and nothing happens. I get no response from them whatsoever. So I know they're not prepared. So it will take something very dramatic to get them to wake up. And that could be the opportunity to say, okay, and they see the need. Let's start on a garden. Let's work together as a community to
Well,
get
that's the
through
other
this.
thing too. It's like, how many of you have had someone say, well, when things go sideways, I'm coming to your house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like, no,
I ain't
I've
sharing.
tried to teach you. I've tried to prepare you so that when things go sideways, you don't have to come to my house.
Yeah. And you can even, that's part of your, maybe as you're going through your neighborhood saying, hey, look, at the end of the day, I'm here to help you so that you're ready, because I don't want you coming to my house. And you set the tone ahead of time. I think part of our comment, Terry, tonight, and I don't know if you guys want to jump into this a little bit, but some of the things that are happening in the world right now, might give people some of that pause to say, wait a minute, that's happening. I probably ought to prepare. And one of the things that I sent you guys, I think the other day, I think I did, was that Glenn Beck was on that podcast talking about how he has actual evidence of the Red Cross, UN, and some of these other places giving these people in these third world, in South America and Mexico, maps,
instructions
on how to come across. The other thing is, I just saw this, actually. I hadn't had a chance to share with you guys, but I just saw this. There's a guy in Texas, and if anybody's in Texas and involved with law enforcement, let us know. But this guy is in Texas, and he says that several of his law enforcement buddies are being invited to come onto a special task force about a riot task force, because they are expecting to have significant amounts of riots. And so they're trying to train their law enforcement guys, and they're training their communities right now. And I know that, Texas is a border state, Arizona is a border state, some of these other ones. And so it's important if you're in those states, to definitely be aware. But, they're going to be transferring into other, more inland, it's going to get more and more into the rest of it. You're going to disperse around. So those are two things that I was like, wow. They're giving maps out and instructions on how to come here and do what they're doing. And then they're also preparing in Texas for riots. And I was like, wow, that's pretty real.
Well, part of our last episode, we were just talking about what would we do if we only had 30 days left or 90 days left to prepare, not till the end of the world or anything, but to prepare, to know that we could still get the stuff we need. What would we do, right? So, and kind of what inspired me to that is what you're talking about, Paris, is what's happening at the border. It's an invasion. It's what's happening in the financial markets. That, for example, in March, the banks will run out. Supposedly, it's kind of estimated that the banks will run out of their reverse repo funds. So essentially, these banks, they put their excess funds with the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve pays them interest. And since interest rates have gone higher, these banks have needed that cash. So they're pulling the cash out of the Federal Reserve, and it's down to about 500 billion when it was 2 or 3 trillion. And so it's getting down to, it'll supposedly be down to zero by March or so. And also, the Federal Reserve has also said that they will no longer be offering that reverse repo, that bank lending program anymore. So they've discontinued that, and this other saved currency with the Fed is going to run out. So that's supposedly going to happen in March. So that's kind of what inspired me. Okay, that's a month away, really. So what should I do in the next 30 days to help counter what that might bring, and along with other other issues that you're talking about, Paris, as well. I mean, look what's happening with the U.S. and Iran. The U.S. is seriously considering wiping out Iran. I mean, they haven't said that in so many words, but there are some politicians who are saying we need to do that.
Not going to war, not just
wipe them out,
creating defensive tactics against it, just completely eliminating them. Like, wow.
So
that is the same language that Germany used. That's the same language that Russia used, and they killed millions and millions. Well, okay, look at what's going on in Israel right now. So the Gaza Strip, like 4 days ago, a lot of countries started saying that they're going to withdraw support for food services, farming, and stuff like that. And so now Israel's being accused of trying to use starvation as a weapon, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much crap going on in the world that anything can be weaponized. Obviously, our food scarcity is going to go up in the U.S. as well as throughout the world, especially as more of these billionaires are buying up and China is buying up all of our agricultural land, and they can do whatever they want to create food scarcity,
as well as other certain billionaires.
right?
Well, I also heard that I can't remember if it was. I apologize. I can't remember what country it was, but they were putting out to their citizenry to prepare for a long-term
Yeah.
conflict, and that's a couple of countries actually. If you
But
really think
they're
about it,
saying to get flashlights and get some water bottles. Not nearly to the extent that they should be.
and it
But I
might
mean,
and it might be hyper, because people are wanting to make it all hyped up, and so they're probably getting crazy about it. But did you guys saw that? I sent you guys a reel today about these kids in China that they have this. Apparently, they have this game where it's fake guns, but they're real, but they're plastic or whatever, and they tie into their cell phone, and they can go around, and it's like a laser tag, but it's something that they're promoting over there, and that tells me that, like, when you're preparing for war, you want to get your citizenry ready and prepared and know what to do. And there's just way too many of these things coming out. And it might be that we're just finally aware of it. I hope not. Maybe we'll see. But it also is just kind of alarming that so many countries are talking about invasions or wars, or, the Bible talks to us about rumors of wars and rumors of wars coming. And with China saying things along the lines of, we're not going to back down when it comes to Taiwan. We got Biden being an idiot right now, again, over and over and over. He says, I'm not going to do anything at the border until Congress passes this other thing. No, bro, you can do something at the border now. Like, what? You don't have to stop. You see these videos of people coming across the border, and they're like, where are the women and children? Like, I mean, really, sure, there's some, definitely, there's some, don't get me wrong, but the vast majority seem to be these military age men that are coming across. And somebody said the other day, it's like, when you want to take over, what do you send? You send men, and there's so many things happening right now, so many things for us to be aware of. And is the sky falling? Are we going to die tomorrow? No, but I think it's important for us to be alert, be aware, and stay active, and just kind of keep our head on a swivel about what's going on, because it seems like the rest of the world has this, their news cycle is not as filtered as America's news cycles. And so we get to, if you're in other countries, you hear about what's going on. I mean, I love what's happening in some of these countries, like the Netherlands and France, where they're dumping, like the farmers are coming after, going and dumping manure on these government buildings. I mean, we're seeing some significant upheavals, some people that are rising up against their governments. And that's not too far away from what could be happening here in America. So just be ready. That's all I'm saying.
Did I tell you guys about the Russian official? It's not Vladimir Putin, but it's another Vladimir.
I know you're talking about, yeah.
He made the claim that the U.S. will not have an election this year.
But that was in 2021 as well. So he was predicting a ways out. And this was the German or the Russian who actually he died like shortly thereafter, 6 months or a year after. I don't remember exactly how, but yeah, no, I saw that where he said, "Oh, things are collapsing so fast in the U.S. by 2024, there won't be an election." Now, granted, a lot of people said that about the last election as well, right? But it is becoming more and more a possibility, if you ask me.
And we're going to see what's interesting. What I believe is going to happen, because I mean, we know based after the last election, there's a lot of legal things that happened, voter fraud, and the Senate wouldn't do anything, and Congress was garbage. Everybody, like, just all of our leaders have just completely bailed on their responsibilities to the U.S. people, right? And so they're just doing whatever they want. They're like, oh, how can I make more money as a senator or as a representative of my people without actually representing them? It's just going to get more and more corrupt. That's just how it is. We can fight it. There's channels we can go down to try to make a difference. But the reality is control what you can control and let go of the things you can't control. And that's where
Yeah,
we've
that's good
got to
advice.
take better care personally. Like, we can control on a micro level our microeconomy. We can't control the macro economy, the larger level, larger scale of what's going on outside of our localized, our household, right? So we've got to do things differently than we've done personally and familially and community, right? You know, we talk about we're radio for the ready-minded. We're all about God, family, and country, but honestly, it's God, family, and community before country. We've got to focus on our communities. We've got to help other people get better prepared and get aware and get their heads on a swivel so that they can pay attention, and we can help warn each other when things are going sideways.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, I think Mike made a comment in here so that made me think that I would rather see something that was an event that was very quick, very dramatic, very easy to understand, right? Very easier to make decisions about it, rather than what we're seeing now, just a slow degradation of life and all these little things just nibbling away and just tearing us apart and making it more difficult every day to really understand what's going on. And for people who aren't prepared, who aren't even trying to get prepared, to really even see, because they're, we're all in our own little worlds, and that's great. We, it's to each his own, but and it's uncomfortable to reach out and look for difficult times, right? Most people, I think, want to be positive, and which makes them completely unprepared to deal with the panic that's going to happen with something quick. But for us, those of us who are prepared and have already made those decisions, I think it'll make the decision, okay, I'm bugging out, or I'm going to hold all my stuff. I'm not going to share, I think it'll make those decisions a lot easier. At least I'm hoping, right? I think we can't underestimate the level of panic that our neighbors will have when reality sets in. If it sets in quick enough for them to actually see it, because they're not seeing it now, for the most part, right? If that makes any sense.
This is perfect.
Yep,
look down here.
Yep.
Mike, cooking the frog for most. How do you cook a frog? You just keep rolling the temperature slowly up. And that's the thing. And what's also scary is with the socialist movement in the United States, it's like they're the crabs in the pot. And they won't let their friends get out. They're just, if you know how crabs get cooked, they're
just drop it in the boiling.
One's inches from freedom. They're like, I'm going to get out of here. And the other ones are like, yoink. No, you're not. They're just pulling everybody back into the garbage. And that's their whole mission, is to everybody go down together.
Yeah.
And we have got to wake up. As a society, we have to do better. We need to do better. If you're out there and you're listening to this, and you're just getting into preparedness, like, go over to preppertalkradio.com. Make sure, first of all, you like and subscribe. Get in our weekly lives. Get in listen to all the podcasts. Look at our gear reviews. Like, look at all this stuff and like get going on it, and jump in our Facebook group, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. Learn what to do from a very practical standpoint, not a fear-mongering, not a doomsday perspective, but as a smart, wise, ready-minded perspective.
And I think we're actually a step closer to putting out our Ready Radius book.
Yes,
Scott.
I've been working on getting that ready for publication a little bit last week, but I'm going to be doing a little more this weekend. It's a crazy process to self-publish.
Yeah.
And
but at least you're doing it, not me, right?
Gladly.
But you also want to make a comment about practical here. They are getting desperate. I think so. I think they are really getting desperate, and that's scary. That's dangerous, because you never know what's going to happen. And I think that makes it the more possible that they're going to do something, launch against Iran. We know they've been wanting to do this for years and years and years. We've all heard the clip about the retired general going and visiting his buddies at the Pentagon, saying, look what I just got this memo. We're going to war with all these countries, including Iran. And that was several years ago now. So we know this has been in the works, and it's going to happen on some level or another. So,
well, another thing that's pretty scary is when you have the federal government trying to come in and tell Texas what they can and can't do at their border.
Absolutely.
And the Texas reserves, they're in there putting up the wire, and then you got the federal government coming in, cutting it. And it's just like when at some point, I mean, there's been threats for a long time. We've got what's it called? The Convention of States,
Mm-hmm.
where there are certain states that want to secede. And we're like, look, let all the blue states create a new country. Let's all the red states create our own country. The fact that talk now is becoming even more and more widespread, and it's by people who have some power to do something. We're boiling. I feel like there's a genuine desire in the deep state to create a civil war, to get the people, the Christian conservatives, so agitated, so worked up that we're willing to draw and go. And the reality is that there will come a point, if they keep poking the bear, that the bear will wake up and just do just that. It's just, again, keep your eyes open and your ears open and your ears to the ground, and because we don't know what's going to happen. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised about anything that they did, like martial law, assassinations. Like, think about all the stuff they're threatening to do. Well, at some point, some of those threats might become reality. And what's funny is that, you see some of the things that they're saying in the media, and you're like, wait a minute, you're so, dude, there's so many times I find that the left and the liberals are such hypocrites, man. They are just, it's ridiculous. So I'm just,
and so is the entire Republican leadership. I'm not going to say the party, but the leadership. It's two sides to the same coin. Go ahead and continue.
Well, otherwise they'd be making steps to make changes for everything.
Well, that's the thing, is that our country's been, I feel like, and if you study the Constitution, you'll find this out. I mean, I barely started studying, and I was so obvious to me that, the executive branch has created all these agencies, these 3-letter agencies, as experts. And so what happens is you get a poor guy that gets elected in a local area by the Constitution, which is the way it's supposed to happen. And he gets in there with a few ideas, and they're like, well, are you an expert at that? Well, no, but I know what the people, it's common sense. I know what the people want. I know what the people in my constituency, I see what they're saying to me. And so this is what I'm putting forward. Well, no, we need to have the experts come and review this. And so the EPA and the DOJ and the EDC and the PRQ and the ABC get in there, and they're like, well, we can't do any of this stuff because it's, this scientific study of this and that scientific study that. And before you know it, it's like, what is the Congress even doing? Like, what is the House? They're impotent. And so that's part of the problem, is that we've allowed this to happen, where instead of giving power to our representatives, they've been emasculated, if you will, to these experts in these 3-letter agencies, which is that's actually one of the steps towards the tyranny, towards what we've been talking about with Marxism and communism. Is just that expert, rather than having the people's voice, we're having experts that come in, and that's not right.
So I wanted to share this because we just talked about it. This is a map of the states that are backing Texas.
Backing is lightly.
When I say backing, they're just saying we support you.
They tweeted out some kind of support, which is pretty weak, if you ask me. So Utah is pretty weak on their support. I don't have much confidence in Cox.
Some states
actually
are
doing
sending.
anything, right?
Some states are sending resources. Most states are just saying, "Hey, we got you." Whatever that means, I'm not sure. But this is what's interesting. The states' rights are being infringed upon by the federal government.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's not the first time this has happened. In fact, this is something that happens all the time. And what's great about what Paris just talked about with the 3-letter agencies, there's a 3-letter organization that are experts on certain things and should be asked what to do, and they're not asking them, and that's PTR, Prepper Talk Radio.
That's it, baby.
Like, more people need to be paying attention to what we're talking about, because our goal is to help you be ungovernable, help you be able to live a life that is sustainable, right? What is a sustainable life? Don't listen to the World Economic Forum. They think their carbon footprint's wrong, like got to be like just everything's disheveled and destroy populations and cut. Dude, there's so many trees. Our whole world needs carbon.
They said they literally just
oxygen.
wrote.
It creates carbon. It's how the whole system works.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we would have died off a long time ago. But we're creating more oxygen, and trees need the carbon. Otherwise, the trees are all going to die. Like the stupidity in the entire argument.
Well, they just put out an article that people who garden on their property are creating a bigger carbon footprint than people who don't. And so now gardens are going to be on the chopping blocks if they haven't already.
Propaganda.
Like,
yeah, absolutely. You know, and you know, Mike said here, I wanted to comment on this. You know, I get the feeling that Texas is set up. It's all a setup. It's all a trap, if you ask me.
Yeah, we should be careful about what.
And you know, and there, you know, there's, you know, Trump is leading the polls, and he took Iowa by storm. You know, and again, you know, I don't want to offend anybody that likes Trump. I just think that's a trap as well. You know, I think it's a setup, and so is everything, right? Disconnect. That's what I'm doing. Disconnecting.
There's so many things that are happening right now. That's part of their plan is to distraction, get everybody so worked up with so many different hit them on so many different levels from so many different angles that we're all confused. And that's where it's so important to take time and just take a deep breath and say, okay, what do I really need to do to be ready, prepared? What do I really need to do as a father, as a husband, as a son, as a daughter? I mean, I'm not a daughter, but you know, if you're a woman, take all those things and apply it to yourself.
Yeah.
What do you need to do to realistically move forward? And stop buying into all their definitions and let's get back to what things really mean and start getting back to basics. Cause we're not going to survive if we keep going on the road we're going on. It's going to take people, preppers. It's going to take conservative, moral people who are, you know, whether they're preppers or not, but a conservative, moral people to save the country, to save what we're headed toward.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. You guys remember the movie Ed TV with Matthew McConaughey? It was where
I remember hearing. I never watched it. But yeah.
It was basically the whole premise of the movie was like they brought him on and they're filming every moment of his life. And then they start bringing on, they're like, well, we don't like your girlfriend, so we're going to bring you a new girlfriend. So they're scripting reality TV, right? And now what are we watching? Everyone's watching scripted reality TV, air quotes on reality, right?
Yeah.
What is the government and what are the political elites doing? Scripted reality government. It's the same thing. They're like, hey, we tested on TV, it works. We're doing it full time, all the time, and it's
the illusion of choice.
But it's hilarious. It is the illusion of choice.
Yeah.
And I watched. Last year there was a huge fight. I think it was in China or one of the senates in one of the worlds. There was like this huge fist fight broke out, and they're like, and the memes were funny because it was like everybody was kung fu fighting.
Well, that needs to happen more often.
And it's like we need to get back to that. Like when the founding fathers created the United States and they started debating, they argued
because they could articulate. They were more intelligent. Seems like.
Well,
this Fetterman idiot in the tree. He wears a hoodie to hit the Senate meetings. Like that guy
he's
can't
never had a job in
what
his
he
life.
ate for breakfast, let alone any real. Anyways,
yeah.
Nothing
makes any sense.
I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to show it. I like this.
Yeah,
I think that is the most. If you guys aren't if you're listening to the podcast, you're not hopping on to YouTube to watch stuff. You're missing some really awesome visuals.
And comments,
Just saying, just hop on over there. This is one of the ones you're going to want to hop over. But it's funny because there are threats. There are things going awry. Do we need to worry about what you're watching on the news? Hopefully you're not watching the news.
Let's turn it off.
Right? It's better to read. It's safer to read because you can scan and determine what's garbage pretty quickly. It's better to look at alternative sources. But more important than anything is get yourself right with God and get yourself right with preparedness.
And then you should know have that inspiration if you really truly need to help your neighbors and which ones, and make those difficult decisions. Because I can't tell you what I'm going to do right now. I really don't know.
I think
I'd have a really hard time.
It's also important to realize that as we get these influx of, foreign nationals, that we're aware of what's happening in our communities and in our neighborhoods, because you might today, right now, we can trust who's next door. I know my neighbors, I feel like, and I can work together with them. But if all of a sudden I get an influx of people that's just up or the next community over, the next neighborhood over, and they're foreign nationals, and because they've been allowed into my state and my community, now I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I'm safe for a few days, but once they start branching out, because that's the thing too, is your next door neighbor may not be your threat. It might be the guy that's, up the street, that's quote unquote your neighbor, that's your threat. And as they expand and look for people who have things, you're going to need to defend yourself against maybe the guy that's across this on the other side of the city. Cities aren't, the boundaries that we have today are going to start to really kind of blur as we get into a long-term or any kind of a long-term SHTF. And there's going to be people like in the Nazis, when Germany took over and the Nazis took over, and people, they had snitches. I mean, they had informants.
Yeah, that's true.
So all that stuff's really important. I just watched, I don't know if you guys have, never mind. I don't want to give you any spoiler alerts, but I just watched a movie on Netflix that's pretty good. And there was one guy that just betrayed everybody. And I was just like, you mother loving son of a loving, I was just like, I hate that. So you got to be careful. Like the people that you trust, you got to be careful. And that's something more and more as we're seeing some of these foreign nationals come in and come into our neighborhoods. And that's what's crazy to me too, is that there's people coming in. They're not even, we got to support these people and we got to give them, asylum and all this stuff. I'm like, good. You let them in your house.
Yeah, exactly.
that goes for you.
Right. We already know what they'll say. Yeah.
You just showed us a book earlier that you just bought. Can you look up the word neighbor in that book and tell us?
Oh yeah,
this is a Webster 1828 dictionary. Or what year is it?
1828. Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm asking this is we've redefined things since then so many times. So what really was a neighbor back then versus now? It's like, oh, everyone's your neighbor. Okay, maybe.
All right. There's neighboring, neighborhood, neighborliness, neighborly, neighborship. Let's see here. Okay,
neighborship. I never even heard of that word.
1828, right?
Thanks.
Neighbor or neighbor, 2 ORs. One who lives near another in large towns. A neighbor is one who lives within a few doors in the country. A neighbor may live at a greater distance and in new settlements where the people are thinly scattered over a country. A neighbor may be distant several miles, such is the use of the word in the United States. One who lives in familiarity with another. There we go. Familiarity with another. A word of civility. An inmate or a confidant. A fellow being. One of the human race. Anyone that needs our help or to whom we have an opportunity of doing good. Look at that. And it references Luke 10.
That's awesome.
A country that is near, neighbor. So there you go. I mean, it keeps going on, but yeah, that's why I bought this book, to look up those words. Thank you, Scott. That was perfect.
That was a really good idea, Scott. Thank you.
And I love that. I know we're almost out of time, but I love that because it's like, okay, the word familiar in there hit hard for me. It's like, who am I familiar with?
Mm-hmm.
That's my neighbor. That's, to me, what rang true out of all of that. All of it is applicable. However, in the sense of love thy neighbor and do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, right? But love thy neighbor as thyself.
Mm-hmm.
That is really where it comes in. It's like, there are people that I know, if they come to my house, I'm going to help them. And there are people who I've tried to get prepared, and I've tried to tried.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other people that I know that if they come to my door and they ask for help, who I've tried to help get prepared, I'm not supposed to help them. And that's a deeply personal answer that I had to come to with the Lord. Right.
Yeah.
And whether you're a God-fearing Christian or not, like you've got to do what's right for you. Like, I've been so blessed to live in a family who focused on self-reliance. Both sets of grandparents on both sides. And a few generations back from that, all of them were homesteaders up in Idaho or Utah or Wyoming. And then further out, packing back east, right? So we had hardy people in our life who all understood that weather alone can wreck a year. A crop failing will wreck a year. And so we prepare for those things. Our version of a crop today is societal discord, is riots. Those things are just as damaging because we don't grow our own food locally in most cases. And so we need to be better prepared, and we need to store up while things are good for when things are bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key of long-term prosperity, not just survival. Long-term prosperity.
Yeah,
This is the key.
Yeah, I think as my parting thought, I was just thinking, when Christ was asked who is his neighbor, who is our neighbor, what did he say? He gave the story of the Good Samaritan, right? So take that for however you feel it applies in your life, right?
That is awesome. Thank you.
That's a deep parable.
Yeah.
By the way, I could unpack that for hours and still not even touch it.
It's beautiful.
Thank you guys for listening to Prepper Talk Radio for the ready-minded. I feel like more than ever, we need to be ready-minded, and we need to be thinking, watching, listening. We need to be not just hearers of the word, but doers. We love that you're hearing what we're saying. We love that you're listening to our podcast. We hope and pray that you're actually doing things to be prepared. You're following through on the things you're inspired as you're listening. You're going to be inspired to do things in your life. We hope that you're taking time to actually do those things and implement the things that we're talking about. And we pray that your families are blessed and that you're moving forward and that you're able to have what you need in your life. And again, thank you so much for listening to Prepper Talk Radio for the ready-minded, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Yeah, thanks everybody. See you next week.
One last thing. Listen to this.
Prep.